Good morning. Tina Mitchell here, your mortgage expert and your host of Coffee with a Superstar. My show is with real estate agents for real estate agents, so you can hear what they're doing and how they're doing it. I interview the best of the best in the industry, so you can be inspired by what they're doing. And each week I travel to my superstar's office, and today we've got this nice couch, Gordy.
I know. Try to make it comfy for you.
I love it. So we're sitting here at the couch at the RE/MAX office in Kirkland, and my superstar today is Gordy. Gordy, thank you so much for joining me.
Sure. Well, thanks for coming over.
Yeah, absolutely. And a little bit about Gordy. Gordy was born in a family of real estate agents, and it's unlikely that you'll find another broker with more real estate experience than Gordy has. He's been living and breathing real estate since day one, and wouldn't have it any other way. His father and grandmother were real estate investors. And actually Gordy's sister, Nan, which will be a superstar here because she does awesome volume like you do in this office, and so lots of people in real estate. When Gordy entered the business in 1987, immediately after graduating from the University of Washington, go Dogs.
Right.
His goal was to continue in their legacy. Now, Gordy is in the top 1% of real estate agents nationwide and consistently earns top awards for his production. So that's why I wanted to invite Gordy to be my superstar for today. So Gordy, again, thank you so much for being here. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to sit down and interview you. And again, this show is with real estate agents for real estate agents so that they can hear what you're doing and how you've been successful. So I'd love to start out with asking you the question, what do you do or what do you contribute to your success?
I think just hanging around long enough.
Uh-huh.
No, seriously. We have just tried to have an attitude of putting ourselves in our clients' shoes and treat them the way we would like to be treated. And over a number of years, we've been able to build relationships. I always tell people when they ask, well, what area do you specialize in? Are you a neighborhood specialist in Kirkland or Bellevue or Bothell or Shoreline? And really for me, I've always specialized in a group of people. So we have fewer clients, but we go deeper with fewer. And so what that means is I do travel probably a larger geographic area than most people, but I work with a lot less people, and our close ratio I think is pretty good because we have those deep relationships.
Yeah, and I'm sure that the introductions that you have to new clients is a lot higher too when you're putting in that high level of service and attention with each client.
We do rely on those referrals quite heavily.
Yes.
Just yesterday we did a client event with about 80 of our best clients. And
I heard.
Yeah, and I think they all had a really fun time. We've got another client event coming up in a couple weeks, and that'll be fun as well. So these are the kind of touch points that we have with our clients that build those deep relationships.
Yeah, so if you're listening to the show today and you're looking at taking your business to the next level as a real estate expert, really think about strategically in who you want to work with. And I know that there are some of you listening that might have great experience with internet leads and on cold leads, but look at the conversion from that. Typically, I think the last time I looked, the conversion of cold leads is maybe 3 to 5%, whereas warm leads are closer to 50%. And then if you can really spend that quality time and a higher level of touch points, as Gordy mentions, with your clients, you're going to have even a higher conversion. And I think too, Gordy, too, that you probably enjoy what you're doing a little bit more when you're working with people that you really care about and you build those long relationships with.
Yeah, Tina, it works for me. So there's a lot of different ways to do a volume of business.
Of course.
And there's no right way or wrong way, but this way fits how I'm gifted. I'm not a big buy leads on the internet, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Of course.
It's just not really the way I like to work necessarily. And with a cold call, you have to make a pretty quick connection.
Yes.
In the first probably 10 seconds, you have to connect with that person, or they're not.
Or you've lost it. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas this morning I received a call from a new client that was referred to me by a past client that his words were, "She loves you." And I'm like, well, I love her too,
Nice.
because she's referred probably 10 people to me.
Yeah.
So.
And that's an easier place to be on your mindset as well, because we've shared in past shows that mindset has a lot to do with our success and the space that we actually create to attract our business. And so a little bit easier when you have clients that are calling up to say that they love you versus clients that have no idea who you are.
Right.
But like Gordy says, do business the way that you want to do business, and there's a reason why Mike Ferry's coaching plan works, which is all about that more aggressive sale and more on a cold leads basis. But at the same time, Brian Buffini and his program works really well, which is based more on building relationships and by referral. So
Right.
but think about that strategically and really the business that you want to build for yourself, and so that you can really fall through with that, enjoy what you're doing. So Gordy, I always like to ask my superstar about challenges that they have, because everybody has them.
Mm-hmm.
But the best of the best really know how to find solutions to get through that challenge. So what would you say has been the biggest challenge that you've had in the last 12
Yeah.
months, and how did you overcome it?
Well, and really, it's the biggest challenge I've had for most of my career, Tina. The biggest challenge for me personally is I have a difficult time detaching from the outcome. So in other words, I sometimes care a little bit too much. And so that can be a positive thing, but it can also be a negative thing. Whereas if you do enough business, we all know we're going to get connected with a client that's going to eat up our time, not appreciate us, and in the end, just chew you up and spit you out.
Yeah.
And it can affect us and the other business that we do. So I think my biggest difficulty throughout my career has just been having a hard time walking away from that client early on and discerning whether this is somebody that fits my ideal profile of a client. We all should have an ideal profile that we work with, because we're not gifted to work with everybody.
Yes, and I would imagine that would be even harder too, because your business is coming from past clients that you've worked with. But we've talked about this before in previous shows as well, that it's so critically important to lead and set up what you need to help your clients to be successful. And I would imagine that you can probably figure that out pretty quickly in your first conversation or a few conversations that you're having with that client, correct?
Well, I'm getting better at it, but still
Yes.
learning.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's really difficult, because it's like a dating relationship. Everybody puts
Yes.
on their best face and best smile in the beginning, and then as time goes on, if there's a struggle or something that comes up, you find out more and more about the person's character.
Yeah.
And so the hard part, I think, is we get, as real estate agents, we get a lot of time, energy, and money invested in a client. And I think the mentality that, well, I'll just speak for myself, that I might have is I have too much invested in this person to walk away. When in reality, every dollar, every moment, every opportunity I spend going forward with that person is a negative.
Yes.
It's taken away from my productivity with somebody else, and that may never come to conclusion in a positive way.
Yes.
So I'm learning more about spotting those people and asking the right questions, I
Yeah,
think, to
that's key.
flush out what is their motive, what is their ability, and just what are their expectations, and then being willing to say, I'm not the right person.
Yeah.
That's been difficult for me at times in the past to say, because I feel like I can accomplish what most people want to accomplish, but that's, I think, really incorrect.
Yeah.
I need to look more at, is this somebody that I really want to help, and can I achieve what they want?
Yeah, and so you see, even after being in the industry for as long as Gordy has, there are still challenges and things to try to overcome and figure out a better way of doing things. And I love the asking the questions, because usually if you go through the discovery period, you can find out whether it is a right client. And being able to say that you might not be the right client for me, and here's the reasons why. And then they can make a decision if they're exiting themselves, because they can make a decision of what to do. Really setting up those boundaries. And I like too what you said, Gordy, is this really is being taking away from your other clients. So if you think about it this way, this is actually being a disservice to your future clients, and you're not allowing yourself to be the best for the clients that are right and deserving to work with you because you're spending this time on these other clients, which I'm sure are a smaller percentage.
Right.
Also, we talked a little bit about mindset. It's the emotional stress that's behind that that really is going to have a ripple and a compound effect moving forward and can be devastating for the space that you've created for yourself, your team, and again, your other clients.
Yeah, and my family too.
And
So, 'cause
yeah,
we all have a life.
we can't forget about our family.
Well,
definitely.
we all have a life outside of real estate.
Yes.
And I think one of the big issues that leads to burnout is when we don't have a defining hedge around some of our personal life.
Yes.
And our business leaks into every moment of our waking hours.
Yes, makes sense. So, Gordy, what about if for the agents that are listening to the show today, and if you could share your favorite marketing tip, what would that be?
You know, I think that while I have a degree in marketing and marketing is important, I think I would really encourage people, instead of working on marketing, I would encourage them to work on dialogue.
Okay,
and that's
yes.
what my coach that I worked with for over 10 years really got me to understand, is that the dialogue that we have with our clients and with each other is so powerful. Marketing is important, but it's something that can be hired.
Got it.
And so I would say, do not become a marketing expert. You can hire that. Become a dialogue expert.
Love that.
And that is going to be much more powerful and impactful for your clients, and giving you ability to show value, separating yourself from the field.
Yes.
Is dialogue.
Yeah. And in my coaching program that I do for real estate agents, a little shout out, it'll be in the post down below, my One Time Your Business 8-week burn, which is a live virtual course, which in week 5 we talk about scripting, which is dialogue. And I always say, if you're not getting the results that you want, almost every single time, it's because of the words that you're communicating or the message that you're communicating. So being able to take a step back and figure out how can you better that dialogue and that communication with your clients to get better results. And just as I mentioned before, it is a disservice to our clients if we don't figure out the best way to have that dialogue.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
And if you think about what Gordy said in Biggest Challenge, is really being able to step away from a client that's not right. You need to have the appropriate dialogue and
Absolutely.
the right words to be able to communicate that message at a very high level.
Yep.
So great advice. Marketing definitely is going to come secondary to how
I
we
think so.
communicate with our clients.
And marketing's going to change with the market
Of course.
too, but dialogue rarely changes.
Yes.
Asking questions and being a good listener.
Yeah.
As real estate agents, I think often we talk too much and don't listen enough.
Yeah.
And as a good coach once told me, you can't be listening if you're talking.
Yes.
So we need to have more quiet space, ask the question, and then wait for the answer. One of the things I learned from a trainer years ago named Howard Britton, just an excellent trainer and interviewer. Howard said, do not be a Pop-Tart. And a Pop-Tart, as he would define it, was somebody that get a call on their phone or maybe a hit on the internet, and the first thing they would do would be jump in their car and go show a property. And they really know nothing about the potential client.
Yes.
And Howard said, don't be a Pop-Tart. And I always remembered that. Yeah. And
No
so
Pop-Tarts.
one of the things that we started doing years ago, and we still do, and it's super important, I think, to what we do, is whenever I get a new client, whether it's a referral or somebody we just meet off a sign call, we always have them come into the office for like an hour and a half consultation. And that's where I can ask some questions.
Sure.
And just ask them, how do you like to communicate?
Yes.
Do you like to get phone calls? Do you like to get emails? Or do you prefer text?
Yes.
And then I communicate with them how they like to be communicated with. So it's really important to spend that upfront investment of time.
Yeah.
And that's where we flush out a lot of times if I feel like I can meet their expectations.
Yeah, good point.
So that extra investment of time up front, and people don't necessarily want to spend the time up front, but if I can convince them that it'll make us much more efficient with their time in the long run, it really has been good.
And what a huge waste of time not to take the time up front to really figure out what their needs are, what they're trying to accomplish, make sure, again, going through the dialogue to make sure that they're best client or the right client for you. And, you know, we've all heard that challenges and things are going to come up with any situation. Getting out in the market, there's always a market challenge, and being able to find out what your buyers or your sellers' why behind what they're doing, because you're going to have to use that risk if they don't and the benefit if they do to help keep them moving forward in the obstacles that are going to come up for them. And you can't do that unless you take the time to really get to know what's important to them and why they're doing this purchase or sell.
And it's a big purchase. You know, we're building this trust when we spend time with them, eyeball to eyeball. We're spending time. It's hard to build that trust relationship over email or text message. I'm not saying you can't, but I find there's a much stronger bond when you meet face to face and shake their hand and just get to know them.
Yes, I totally agree. I do a lot of virtual meetings, video meetings. So it's, you know, for clients that can't come in personally. And I love the fact that with video we can do that now, because you can be on camera and you can have that connection, not as much as a face-to-face, but it's an option if somebody wants to meet at 9 o'clock at night.
Right.
So, Gordy, what about, you've mentioned a couple people that have said things or coached you to be an inspiration to you that has made a difference in how you operate on a day in and day out basis with your business. But who else can you think of, a book or somebody that's been motivational to you in real estate business?
Yeah, there's just been so many people that have impacted me. I would say, you know, my coach, Dirk Zeller at Real Estate Champions, coached me for like 10 years. And, you know, coaching is really a good investment, in my opinion. You have to find a coach, though, that connects well with your style. There's a lot of people that are good coaches, but they have a program, and you know, even like Brian Buffini is a great real estate coach, but he has a program that you get on, and Mike Ferry, you know, Tom Ferry, there's all different kinds of coaches that have programs. I chose a coach that had a custom program for each and every client.
Yes.
And that's why I chose who I did. So I would say Dirk Zeller's been a very, very impactful person for me. He's written probably a dozen books, and they're great real estate books. So you might check him out. I've seen a number of great speakers over my years in real estate. Brian Buffini is one, Joe Stumpf is another.
Yes.
These are great. David Knox is a person that was very impactful in terms of pricing and learning how to price property and relay that to a seller in a way that they can receive it.
Yep. Again, dialogue.
Dialogue, exactly. One of the guys that really impacted me at a RE/MAX convention was Magic Johnson, actually.
Okay.
And Magic Johnson has been very successful, not obviously just on basketball, but in real estate. And he owned a number of Starbucks franchises and has a great business mind, which I didn't have any idea that he was that successful in business. But one of the things that he said that was so impactful to me when I heard him speak was that the biggest thing that he had done to create wealth and success in business is something that he really didn't have a choice over, and that was staying married. And he felt like for him, staying married, because as most of us know, he had an opportunity to not be married, and his wife stuck with him through some hard times. And that was his number one thing that he said, if you want to stay successful, most of the most successful people in the world stay married.
Really?
And so that was really impactful to me, that how powerful that is, because as we all know, marriage is difficult, and there are times when a person might want to bail, and it is really impactful to actually make that relationship work out if possible.
Yeah, and I actually write about that in my book. Dave and I have been married for 23 years now.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you so much. And there was a time that we went through our challenges, and He quit his career and worked for me for the last 8 years, and now he's been retired for a few years. But what I figured out is we really need to, as our own person, we need to come from a place of acceptance. So accept them for who they are, no matter what, unless there's an abuse or something.
Right.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Absolutely.
Come from a place to love. So really love them for who they are. And then the hardest one is accountability. To really be accountable for our part, mostly accountable for how we're going to react in that second to whatever they're saying, because of course I thought that he was just being a bad husband, but the reality is I was too, because of how I was reacting when he was having a bad day and not taking accountability that I was coming into the marriage and that space being a bad person as well, because I was having a bad day. So, and I wanted to mention that because this just gave me goosebumps there for just a couple seconds, but I wanted to mention that because this is in everything, whether it's life or it's in business. And so in business, you really need to come from a place of, loved. You love your business and love where you're at, love your team, love your company. Come from a place of acceptance, for accepting for the great things that they have. And then, being accountable for how your reaction is to whether somebody else is having a bad day, or the industry is having something that is being challenged. How are you going to take accountability for how you're going to react to that? Because your reaction is going to determine what's going to happen that next second, and a ripple effect moving on forward from them. So, I love that, Gordy. So, and coaching, I wanted to go back to that really quick because, it's very, very important. And I think it's, important when you're hiring somebody to hire your coach, to go with somebody that knows the real estate space, but not only that, but somebody that's actually been very successful. Because there are a lot of coaches out there. And to coach somebody that couldn't make it in the real estate space and decided to become a coach, you really need to make that an investment to find the right one that's going to have a huge impact on your business and life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the things, Tina, that really attracted me to the coach that I chose to work with was that he had been uber successful in transactions, but he had done it all the while in working a 4-day work week. So he not only took weekends off, but he also took Fridays off.
Love that.
So I don't know too many real estate agents that take Friday, Saturday, Sunday off and close 150 transactions a year.
But he had a great team with him too, right?
He had a great team, but it wasn't a huge team. It wasn't like he had 10 people on his team.
Yeah.
It was a smaller team, and he just knew how to keep these boundaries. And he had been modeled that by his father, who was a dentist. And his father always took Fridays off growing up, and he said, whatever I do, I'm going to take Fridays off and be with my family. And while I haven't quite got the 3-day weekend down all the time, I'm working towards it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's funny. If somebody can do it, it's possible for us. And I think especially in the real estate space and mortgage to follow second. You hear so many times, you can't do that. You have to be available for your clients. You've got to be available 7 days a week. And you don't. And the best of the best have not only a great business model and great volume, but they have a great family life as well.
They do.
Yeah.
We have so much more to give our clients when we're happy with our home life. Yes.
So, Gordy, we have about 6 minutes left, and I would love to ask you to share with especially our real estate agents that are listening today, a call to action if they want to take their business to the next level, whether it's just to get started or better or be a superstar. What should they be doing?
Oh, that's a great question. So there's a couple things that I would specifically encourage people to do. Number one is invest in yourself, invest in knowledge. We talked about dialogue. A coach is an excellent thought, maybe. It's not a magic pill, but it's definitely, if it's a good coach, they can usually get a lot more out of you.
Yes.
And then I would say there's a ton of real estate agents that are what I call lone warriors, lone soldiers. They're out there fighting the battle by themselves every day. And while I'm not big into huge teams of 10 or 20 people, I definitely see value in a smaller team. And number one is having an assistant.
Yes.
So what I would tell everybody out there is whether you have an assistant or not, you have an assistant.
Yes.
It's just that you are the assistant. And when you're
that's a great way of saying it.
Right. And so if you can't take a few things off your plate, there's only 24 hours in a day.
Yep.
And this is where I think the work life bleeds into our personal life. Because what typically will happen is a person will work. They'll get some transactions in escrow, and then their production falls off because they're doing all the behind the scenes work, calling the lenders, they're making sure escrow is set up, they're arranging for keys, they're picking up key boxes, they're ordering signs up, ordering signs down, they're making flyers, all that stuff that has to be done. But if they're doing it, they're not meeting with face-to-face with new clients.
Yes.
So that's why you get this kind of curve in your production. And if you want to have a production that's more like this, you have to have an assistant. And even if a person says, well, I can't really afford a full-time assistant, then share an assistant
Yes.
with another agent, part-time, you know. There are tons of people that want to work, you know, gals that want to be there for when their kids get home and they'll work 10 to 2 or something like that. Hire a part-time assistant. Then as soon as you can afford it, hire a full-time assistant.
Yeah.
And so I would say have the right people working with you, have a great mortgage loan officer, a great escrow closer,
Yes.
people on your extended team that know what they're doing so you don't have to put out fires, they can help you.
Yes.
So the right people, invest in yourself,
Yes.
and define your personal life, have some borders, create white space,
Yeah.
and protect that. Your time with your family is an appointment,
Yes.
and you need to keep it.
Yeah, and if you don't have a team, it makes it really difficult for that. And I loved it how, and Victoria, thank you, my executive assistant that's behind the camera here every Monday and travels with me, which is so great to hang out with her outside of the office for Coffee with a Superstar. And so when we came in here this morning, your team was all there waiting for us to give us a nice warm welcome while you were coming into the office from your last appointment. So
Right.
yeah, they're really an extension of you. And Victoria and I were talking earlier with one of your team members, and you know, when people think of me, they think of Victoria, and because she is a direct extension of our front of the business. And so it's really nice to have that. It also makes it kind of fun not to be all on your own, and to know that
Exactly.
you've got some great people that care about your business as much as you do.
Yep.
And in week 6 of my coaching program, I talk about embracing your strengths and hiring out your weaknesses. That's all about team building, how to hire the right people. And you know, I always say, if you're asking yourself if you should be hiring an assistant, that's the time that you really need to, because you're telling yourself you have too much on your plate. And I know that you and I are not good at everything. Nobody
No.
is. And so you've got to really find somebody to fill those voids, you know, for you. So
Exactly.
great advice. Well, Gordy, thank you
Yeah.
so much
Thank
for
you for
allowing me to
coming.
interview you today, and just look forward to see your continued success in the real estate business.
Thank you, Tina. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you to all of you for being here this morning for this week's Coffee with a Superstar. Please join us next week, same time, different location. We'll see where we're going next week. And I just really appreciate you. Have an amazing day. Enjoy the beautiful weather that we're having in Seattle. All right, thank you.